Yeah, a couple of things.
And what will be your thoughts when that happens.
That's right.
So it's a 4-step process.
Right.
Anyone with a limiting belief, follow those 4 steps.
Right, okay. Yeah, just a couple of things in response to you mentioning about therapy and counselling as well. There are, as you probably will know, there are several approaches to therapy and counselling. And the field is very vast, and again, the approaches are a multitude, really. And some approaches do look at just behaviour and how we change behaviour. I'm not so familiar with that. I mean, personally, I sort of like to follow what they call a Rogerian, a person-centred therapy. It ties in with what you say a little bit. Some therapies look back. That's sort of psychoanalytic psychotherapy would look into childhood, for example. But I suppose maybe correcting you slightly about what the aim is. It's looking perhaps sometimes looking backward, so you can reorientate the person to look forward and understand what they do and why they do them. So that's only a bit of response to what you're saying and how it ties in or doesn't tie into what you do, perhaps. And the second part I was actually going to say to you is, would you like to sort of give yourself a plug for listeners out there as we're talking, rather than waiting to the end of the program, to give yourself a little plug into? You just described a little bit about what you do, but the business. What is it called?
So the business is called Transforming Perceptions.
Right.
What we do is we work with organisations to create more compelling workplaces.
Okay.
In a nutshell, most workplaces and organisations of people, they rely on something called extrinsic motivation, meaning I'm going to give you a short-term reward for the work that you do, meaning I'm going to pay you every month, or I might give you a bonus, and they might be the 2 carrots that I dangle continually, right? Or the idea of a soon step up in the progression ladder, right? Either way, they're all going to be short-term, not very long-lasting, and as soon as you've got them, you're going to want the next one, right?
Right. Okay.
So that is an effective way of motivating people, but it's also not very sustainable and it's exhausting, and that's why most people in the workplace, because it's so geared up around that motivational mechanism, essentially short-term reward mechanisms, the whole environment then follows that suit. That's why you get this toxic way of making decisions of autocracy and someone being very totalitarian and everyone being told what to do. And the real compelling alternative to that, which we help create, is an intrinsically motivating work environment where people are working in teams as equals, so that they can problem solve together, and help the organisation move towards where they really want to be. Instead of being told what to do, the people can decide how they need to make that change happen. And they themselves actually make the changes. So from within, broad lens.
Okay. Now I sort of steered you off track slightly. I didn't want to do that, but I was aware. I just wanted to.
That's all right.
Wanted to have you sort of.
There was the plug.
Plug your business, There
was the plug. We'll go back to what you were saying actually about the therapy and counselling. That was the plug for the business. The youth work I was talking about is actually a community interest company. And you can find out more information on that on RayyanKarim.com. So it's RAYYAN. KARIM for mother.com, and you'll see there's a bit on education there, and that's where you can contact me, find out more information and whatnot. But thank you for the correction. Actually, therapy and coaching are quite interlinked. I feel like the difference is on the weighting. I think on coaching you spend much more time, if you go to the Pareto effect, right, the 80-20 rule. You probably spend 80% of the time thinking forwards and 20% of the time getting that emotional juice from the past experiences. What would you say the balance was in therapy? Because I'm less experienced there.
I was just trying to think about what you mentioned, and I realized that there are so many like therapeutic approaches to working with people. So there's that as one thing. But my personal approach is actually working and just trying to understand what people are saying, with the view for the client to respond in a way that gives them deeper insight. So they may say something to me and I might repeat it to them or frame it back with them, and they say, well, actually, Darnell, not quite, I mean this. And then they might have another thought. So it's like you're going down a sort of a bit of a rabbit hole, maybe. You're going down a rabbit hole, and we're working together and in doing that, it poses some challenges, but it also gives hopefully some more insight and awareness for the client to think, oh, actually, okay, I didn't mean that. That's where I got that thought about this particular person, or even a situation, or a name, or a smell. So all those types of things, and it's like just awareness raising, I would say, but the approach would be different. That's the kind of response I would give to what you're asking me as well.
There's just so much power in helping someone find that clarity, and in finding that level of clarity for yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like that does give you a lot of it's an energy boost that gives you completely. So and also silence. When you're working with people in the way you described. When I started about 3 years ago, I started doing it in organisations. Working with executives and leaders all from actually quite big companies like IBM and some of their top firms. I was going to Brazil, I went to Australia, I was doing some workshops in various countries, and also supporting their leaders as a coach. All very quickly. Lots of things seem to happen quite quickly for some reason.
You don't. Well, actually, you said for some reason. Do you have any idea of what the reasons were, do you think? Because I know you just sort of, it might be a throwaway comment, and I don't want to look back at this interview and think, actually, I want to ask him about that. What reasons did you think it happened that quickly?
How deep do you want to go on this one? So I can go.
Well, no, it's up to you. It's totally down to you. It's down to you.
Alright. I mean, I feel like your early experiences in life, basically from 0 up until probably about 4 or 5, I think they really shape your future and some of the inherent kind of maybe conditioning and behaviour kind of complexities you might have, and different kind of emotional strings that get connected, and that's often before you've developed any real ability to properly communicate in the world, right? You've just started school at that age, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it was a bit turbulent. We moved house 10 different times in between 0 and 4.
Yeah.
My mum was in a mental health institution for about 6 months. I lived with my auntie for a little bit. I finally ended up in Southend, as a result of it.
Yeah.
And I think that obviously being away from my dad and then having him at the weekend, seeing him at the weekends and things like that, I actually think for me that birthed this feeling of somehow like inadequacy, like I wasn't quite good enough, or it was my fault that maybe some of these problems have been happening, because you can see that you're maybe causing some of that stress because you're a kid and kids are stressful, right?
Well, I mean, you're saying you're a kid and kids are stressful.
I think raising children is stressful, definitely, and I think. Have
you got children? Have you got children, Ryan?
No, I haven't, but I've been around. I've got a few of my friends have got small kids now, and I'm now seeing it for the first time. When you're an adult in the world and you're having your own baby, it's a big step up, and the emotions are mad. And I think especially if you're not settled in yourself when you have children, I think there can be some complications. And I think in the event of my family, that pretty much where it was at is that there was emotional scar tissue on both my parents' side, really, that maybe neither of them had really kind of got to, and that all kind of came to a head at once almost at a particular point in time. And so it's not that I do not believe that defines you for any given moment, right? But what it does do is it created for me anyway this need of wanting to be seen, I guess. Right. Wanting to be seen and wanting to be seen doing well. Right. Okay. So that I can get that gratification of no, you are good enough, Right. So I've always been super competitive.
I'm sorry, I missed that bit, Rayyan. What was that last bit?
I've always been super competitive, really.
Oh, competitive. Okay.
Almost with myself. It's not even. It's like I want my own validation in a way.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of driven me to this point.
Right.
Okay. But I think as of when I started this business and this community interest company, which all started in the business started in January 2019, and the community interest company started exactly a year later, so January of this year. I feel like that's there's nothing else I want to create in the world. I don't have the same achievement itch or fix or bug that I needed to have before. I don't need to feel as I don't need to chase that level of like importance or validation from my external environment anymore either.
Oh, really?
So I feel much more secure and like rooted in myself. And I think a lot of that is because of the structure that I've been able to create around me, like the notion that the systems that we live around and are in, we can kind of fine tune and create for ourselves. So I've been fortunate enough to be at this age and to be in a position where I can have all that kind of knowledge and experience in place to try and start these two companies. But also to have that depth of understanding of so far in my life what I think really matters, and that is, you know, the human experience matters, right? And the planet we live on is amazing. So
what do you mean? What do you mean by you said when you say human experience? I mean, I know you talked a little about that before. I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about. So human experience.
When I say that, I think it means that, like our state of well-being. We can be alive, but are we actually enjoying life? You know, sometimes we can be so mechanical and almost on autopilot, and we're not really aware or thinking about what we want and what's happening. And so we can end up in a lot of like societal defaults, if that makes sense, instead of doing something that we want for us. And those choices are directly linked to your state of well-being, I believe. It's a lot about the structure and the systems you can try and create around you. And for everyone, that's different. Not everyone needs to be like the owner of something, or but everyone does need their own blend, their own unique blend of their own kind of structure or system. I would say system because it's much more flexible. Around them, that they need to kind of design and make happen for themselves.
That's right. I mean, Ryan, I've got a couple of questions. I hope you don't mind me asking. So at this young age, you've started these businesses. I suppose I was interested in the change. At what point did you? So you recognise that the beginnings had their trials and challenges, and what actually reorientated you to? What was there a series of events, or was it something to?
Yeah, man. Yeah, there was quite a.
And you don't have to go into if you don't want to. I was just interested. I was just listening and thinking.
I think the interesting. I think one way of coming around this in a way that doesn't get myself into too much trouble, right?
Yeah. No. You go where you want to go.
Is predominantly our 6-week program, Design Your Future, focuses on inspiring young people from tough social economic backgrounds, right?
Yeah.
So often those people have quite rich life experiences, and there's quite a lot of power in that we want to try and unearth. And there's also a lot of if you're from a tough social economic background, i.e. there's not a lot of available capital around, you might not have lunch money, you might have to, I don't know, I used to buy and sell lighters when I was about 14 to try and make money at school. Other kids were selling chocolate, right? And then you can see where that kind of mentality might lead as other habits start to form as you start to get older. So I make sure that every single facilitator in the program is from that kind of experience and background, and they've got the transformational tales to tell. Because as well as these learning devices and these kind of segments that allow for that personal learning to be found, you need the connection between the person at the front of the room and the exercise. So it's really important that those people have come from some of them have been to prison, some of them have been in and out of prison for many years, and now they completely changed their ways, and one of them's become an actor. He actually just he was on National Theatre Live recently. I'd highly recommend everyone to go and watch it, actually. I think it's up for a month now. It's called The Death of England, Delroy, and it's actually a story, a one-man show actually, a powerful one-man show.
Right.
Right, it's insane. The performance is so powerful, but it's about a black man's experience in a British society, I guess.
Okay. And what is that called again? Sorry, Ryan.
And so that's called The Death of England, and then it's like Delroy. It's on National Theatre Live on YouTube, and it should be available. I think it's available for a month.
Oh, from what date to what date? Do you know the dates at all?
From yesterday.
Okay.
No, sorry, from Friday. Yeah, so from the. It was actually from the 27th, I believe.
Okay.
Of November. I think it's available. Yeah, as I say.
Till the 27th of December. All right. Okay.
Yeah, I believe so.
All right. Okay. No, thanks for that.
That's really good. But so that's the experience of people that we want delivering the workshops.
Yeah.
And again, it's kind of like, off the back of my own personal trials and tribulations as well.
Yeah.
Lots of my friends that I grew up with been arrested for various things over the years, right?
Yeah.
Football hooliganism, drug dealing, kind of GBH and all those kind of stupid offences there.
Yeah.
And there was a particular moment in time where I had to look up at myself long and hard in the mirror and kind of say to myself, I think I was about 18.
Yeah.
I had 4 months of free education left.
Right.
I'd messed up. My first year, I'd kind of been kicked out of my mum's. I moved in with my dad's. I left my dad's back to my mum's. I was a bit all over the place.
Right.
And a few things went down, and I had to make a decision. Right? What life are you going to choose?
Right.
And I just kind of hung the gloves up, if you want to call it that way.
Yeah.
And really cracked on with the books.
You kind of retired. You retired from that way of being or thinking or living, and decided you wanted.
I retreated from quite a lot of situations and events and people, basically. So to try and keep myself, on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
And just hit the books like mad. I still had a close net of good friends that weren't causing trouble, so that was a big help as well.
Okay.
Hit the books. I had to teach myself business because the teacher left and they didn't backfill him. So I literally had to get the whole curriculum, all the books, and literally do it all myself. So I had to do business.
Yeah.
I had to take a couple retakes as well.
Yeah.
End up doing something like 6 or 7 exams.
Yeah.
And I got ABB, which meant I could get out of that hometown and into Manchester. And
so Ryan,
was an absolute eruption in my mind.
Before we go there,
it exploded.
Right. Before we go there, I'm still a bit intrigued as to what was that. Was it a light bulb moment? What was it that you think? What when you stood in the mirror? What happened just before that point? I'm interested to what. If you can say, I'm not sure. Can you? If you can't, that's fine. I'm still interested to see what made you stand in front of the mirror and think, I've got to change things.
Yeah, I've been arrested a couple of times.
Okay.
And a few situations are happening locally.
Right.
I'd rather not talk about.
No, that's fine.
And it's just one of them things.
Okay.
Really. Just think, what am I doing with myself?
Right. Yeah. I was just interested to find out what was it. Just for people listening, they might be thinking, okay, you had that moment, but what actually pushed you there?
Enough,
No, it's fine.
Definitely, yeah. It's a bit of a grey area.
It's fine.
A bit of a grey area.
Yeah,
One
that's
thing
fine.
I will say though is, have you ever heard the special song "A Message to Rudy"?
Yeah. This is our era.
It was actually, man. There was one particular moment. I was chilling out with my friends.
Yeah.
We weren't out. We were indoors, and this was with a bunch of friends that don't cause no trouble. And it was all happening, and that song came on.
Right.
And I'd heard it loads before, but I'd never really listened, And just something about that message at that time, given the context and what else was happening,
Right.
That really kicked me into action. I think also my mum wasn't well at the time. My brother was kind of coming down from London on the scene a lot, and he'd kind of seen what I was getting up to, and he was in my ear all the time as well. So it was just very intense, and something had to happen.